The first thing you notice about Las Vegas is not the casinos, nor the shimmering skyline, but the sound. A constant hum, a vibration that never ceases, as though the desert itself has been wired to a pulse. It crawls into your skin the moment you arrive, mingling with the heat and the dust, and before you know it, you're breathing in rhythm with the city. The Strip that night was alive with spectacle. Tourists flooded the sidewalks in packs, clutching plastic cups of beer and margaritas. Dancers in feathered costumes paraded outside the entrances to grand hotels. Street performers juggled fire, painted their faces, swallowed swords, and shouted for attention. Above it all, the casinos screamed in neon, their signs spinning and pulsing in a hypnotic sequence of reds, blues, and greens. It was supposed to be joy, a carnival of chance, a playground of light. But beneath the roar of slot machines and the laughter of strangers, I felt something else, a low thrum that did not belong. I told myself it was just exhaustion. I'd come to Vegas for the same reasons everyone else did, to escape, to lose myself in the promise of a city that never sleeps. Yet from the moment I stepped into the crowd, I couldn't shake the sense that the city was watching me. Not the dealers, not the cameras, but something older, deeper, hidden beneath the glittering facade. At first, the oddities were small. Walking past the Bellagio fountains, I thought I heard a voice whisper my name, the rush of water. In the MGM Grand, the patterned carpets seemed to writhe when I looked at them too long. And inside the Mirage, beneath the dome of artificial jungle and painted sky, I swore I saw a symbol carved faintly into the stone of the waterfall, not part of the decoration. Something older, scratched into the rock like a wound. Others noticed too, though no one said it directly. A couple beside me at the blackjack table stared along at the ceiling lights, blinking rapidly as though something invisible flashed above. A group of tourists burst into nervous laughter when the slot machines around them rang at once, their tones harmonizing into a single, discordant note that seemed to vibrate through the floor. And in the bathroom mirror, a man stood behind me for a moment too long before I realized there was no one when I turned. Still, the party went on. The music never stopped. The dealers never faltered. The neon burned brighter than the stars. Vegas is built on illusion. You tell yourself you imagined it, and you go back to your drink. But by midnight, the unease thickened. Crowds moved strangely, not just in chaos, but in patterns, as though guided by an unseen conductor. I stood on a balcony overlooking the Strip and saw them below, tourists swaying in unison, as the lights of the billboards pulsed like a heartbeat. Their heads tilted the same way, their feet shuffled in the same rhythm, and though each mouth laughed or shouted different words, the sound merged into a single drone, low and relentless. For the first time, I realized how fragile the city truly was. A mirage built on sand, a machine that worked only if everyone believed. But if the illusion cracked, even for a second, what lay beneath? I walked deeper into the night, through casino after casino, each brighter and louder than the last. The carpets tangled into spirals, the slot machines blinked in coded rhythms, the dice rolled in patterns that felt preordained. And everywhere, faintly, I heard the same whisper. Not words, not yet, but something that brushed the edge of language. By the time I reached Fremont Street, the whisper had grown into a chorus. Dozens of voices, layered and endless, spilling from the neon canopy above. Tourists stumbled, clutching their heads, their laughter breaking into screams. And yet no one stopped. They kept walking, kept gambling, kept drinking, as though compelled to continue, even as fear twisted their faces. I pressed my hands to my ears, but the voices were inside me now, and in that endless flood of light and sound, I realized the truth. Vegas was not a city. It was a law, a beacon. Something ancient crouched beneath the desert had wrapped itself in neon and spectacle, and we, foolish, desperate, hungry, had walked willingly into its mouth. The Strip roared on, louder than ever, as the whisper turned into words I could finally understand. You are ours now. The next day, I told myself it had only been the alcohol, the fatigue, the desert heat. Vegas was built for excess. You push yourself too far, and the mind invents shadows. But the city did not let me forget. Inside the Venetian, I found the first symbol again. It was carved shallowly into the plaster, behind a row of slot machines. At first glance, it looked like graffiti, some meaningless scrawl left by a bored tourist. But the longer I stared, the less random it seemed. A circle intersected by jagged lines, patterns repeating in a geometry that made no sense, yet seemed deliberate. The shape burrowed into me, as though I had seen it before, long ago, in a dream I wasn't supposed to remember. I asked a security guard about it. He laughed, said, "Probably some drunk with a coin keychain," but his eyes flicked away too quickly, and his voice cracked on the word probably. After that, I started seeing them everywhere, scratched into bathroom stalls, etched faintly into poker tables, painted in dust behind decorative plants, even projected in the reflections of windows when the neon outside flickered at the right frequency. Always the same shape, though sometimes larger, sometimes twisted. I overheard others mention it too. A woman at the craps table whispered to her husband, "It's on the dice." A group of college kids pointed nervously at the carpet pattern, insisting it shifted when they blinked. One man in a Hawaiian shirt screamed at the ceiling of the Luxor, swearing the pyramid's light wasn't just a beacon, but a message written across the sky. And the voices, the whispers from last night, hadn't left. They came now not only from the lights and fountains, but from the mouths of strangers. Dealers leaned close to give instructions, but in their words I heard the echo of that chorus, "You ours now." The strangest part was how quickly it spread. By evening, the casino floors buzzed not with laughter, but with murmurs. Strangers approached one another, describing symbols they'd seen, voices they'd heard, patterns in the slot machines that no longer felt random. Instead of dismissing each other, they nodded, agreeing, feeding the paranoia until it swelled like a tide. On Fremont Street, a crowd gathered under the neon canopy. They weren't watching the light show. They were staring at the walls, tracing their fingers over invisible shapes. Some muttered to themselves. Others stood motionless, faces tilted up, eyes glassy, as if watching something only they could see. I wanted to leave. Every instinct screamed at me to get into my car, to drive out of the desert and never look back. But when I reached for my keys, I realized I didn't remember where my hotel was. The city had looped me into its labyrinth. Each street looked identical. Each sign pointed back to the Strip. And then there was the girl. She appeared beside me at the entrance to Caesar's Palace. I hadn't seen her approach. She was simply there, her dark hair tangled, her eyes sharp with feverish clarity. She leaned close and whispered, "You hear them too, don't you?" I wanted to deny it, to shake her off and insist she was another drunk, another lost gambler. But the words caught in my throat, because she was right. "They won't let us leave," she said. "Not now, not when the city's awake." Her voice trembled, but there was conviction beneath it, the kind of conviction that comes from surviving long enough to understand the rules of the nightmare. I followed her without thinking, through corridors that pulsed with light, past walls that bled with symbols, into a casino where the slot machines spun on their own, their reels frozen on the same sequence, jagged lines and circles, repeating endlessly. No one else seemed to notice, or maybe they noticed too much, their eyes wide, their mouths slack, as though the symbols had become the only language left. The girl turned to me, her face half lit by neon. "Don't you see? It's not us playing the games. It's them, with the pieces on their board." The casino floor rang with laughter then, but it wasn't human. It came from the machines, from the walls, from the very air, a chorus of voices layered into one. And above it all, faint but growing, the symbols began to glow. It began with the jingles. Every casino had them, the artificial celebration when a slot machine paid out. Normally, they were harmless, background noise against the thunder of coins and the chatter of gamblers. But now they no longer sounded like chants. They came in rhythm. First one, then another, then a dozen at once, the tones aligning into a melody too precise to be random. I stopped at the edge of the casino floor, goose flesh prickling my skin. The melody repeated, rose, shifted. The room seemed to sway with it. Patrons tapping fingers against tables, nodding in unison, moving their bodies to a song they didn't know they were hearing. The girl beside me squeezed my wrist. "It's starting," she whispered, and once I noticed it, I couldn't unhear it. The thump of bass from nightclubs bled through the walls, perfectly syncing with the jingle of the machines. The rhythmic chant of dealers, place your baits, fell into cadence. Even the footfalls of tourists on the carpet matched the beat, thousands of steps merging into a single, living drum. Las Vegas had become an orchestra, and we were the instruments. On Fremont Street, the canopy of neon blazed with colors that pulsed to the same rhythm. Red flashed, then blue, then green, each beat hammering into my skull. Crowds below lifted their arms without instruction, swaying like worshippers at some forgotten ritual. I tried to push against the current, but it was like fighting the tide. My steps fell into the rhythm no matter how I resisted. My breath came in sync with the lights. My pulse throbbed with the bass. My body was no longer mine. People began to chant. At first, just fragments, numbers from roulette wheels, words from advertisements, snippets of lyrics blaring from open clubs. But the fragments merged, repeating, looping, until the crowd spoke as one. Not English, not any language I knew, but something older, harsh and guttural, each syllable scraping like stone. The girl dragged me into an alley, pressing my back against the wall. Her eyes were wild, her breath ragged. "You can't listen too long," she said. "It roots itself inside you." I nodded, though my ears still rang with the chant. Even in the silence of the alley, the rhythm echoed in my chest. And then we saw the first collapse. A man staggered into the street, his arms twitching, his legs jerking as if pulled by strings. He opened his mouth, but no words came, only the chant, spilling out in perfect unison with the crowd. His eyes rolled back, his body convulsed, and then he crumpled to the ground, motionless. People rushed to him, but when they touched his skin, they jerked back as though burned. His body twitched once more, and from his throat came a burst of laughter, not his voice, not his laugh, but the echo of 1,000 others. The crowd did not scatter, they only swayed harder, the rhythm tightening around them like chains. "Don't you see?" the girl whispered. "The city is feeding. Every voice, every step, every sound. It makes it stronger." We ran again, but it was useless. No matter where we turned, the rhythm followed. Inside hotels, the elevators dinged in cadence. In restaurants, knives and forks clattered against plates in perfect time. Even the fountains sprayed in rhythm, jets of water rising and falling like notes in the endless song. And above it all, the neon burned hotter, symbols flickering in its glow, lines and circles weaving together into shapes that writhed when I looked at them too long. I pressed my hands against my ears. "How do we stop it?" The girl only shook her head. "You can't stop music. You can only dance until it ends." Her words chilled me more than the chant itself, because I realized then, this music wasn't meant to end. It was meant to go on forever. And Vegas, the mirage in the desert, was no longer a city. It was a song, and we were the chorus. At first, I thought it was just exhaustion. My body still trembled from the rhythm that had consumed the strip. My ears still rang with the chant. But as I stumbled through the throngs of tourists, a new terror crept over me. They were watching me. Not just a glance here or there. Not curiosity. Something deeper. Eyes clung to me the way shadows cling to corners. A man at a blackjack table stopped mid-hand, his gaze locking on mine. A pair of cocktail waitresses paused in perfect synchrony, their trays tilting dangerously as their eyes followed me. Even the costumed performers on Fremont froze, their painted grins brittle, their pupils wide and unblinking. At first, I told myself it was paranoia, that I was imagining the weight of their stares. But then I saw their pupils, too wide, swallowing nearly all the iris, leaving only thin rings of color. Their mouths twitched, as if trying to remember how to smile. And when they finally did smile, it was wrong. Too slow, too wide. The girl at my side noticed it too. She gripped my sleeve so tightly that her nails dug through the fabric. "Don't look back," she hissed. "If you see their eyes too long, you'll hear it again." But it was already too late. A man brushed past me, close enough for his shoulder to graze mine. I caught his gaze for half a second, and instantly the rhythm returned. Not in my ears this time, but in my skull. His eyes pulsed like drums, each dilation of his pupils matching the beat I thought I had escaped. I staggered, clutching my head, my vision blurred. When it cleared, the crowd was no longer people, but a sea of faces, all staring, all waiting. The symbols had spread to their skin. Faint lines and circles glowed beneath the neon, etched along their throats, their forearms, their temples. Not tattoos, not paint. Something alive, pulsing faintly, as if the city itself had carved them. We ducked into a hotel lobby, hoping for refuge. The white marble floors gleamed beneath chandeliers, but even here, the gaze followed us. The receptionist didn't blink once while checking in a guest. The bellboy froze mid-step as soon as we entered, his smile locked in place like a mask. The girl pulled me toward the elevators, but my eyes kept darting to the mirrors lining the lobby. At first, they showed only reflections, tired faces, hurried movements. But the longer I looked, the more I noticed small delays. Someone would turn their head, and their reflection would linger a moment too long before following. Someone would blink, and their reflection would not. When I caught my own eyes in the glass, my stomach dropped. For a heartbeat, my reflection didn't blink with me. Its lips moved on their own, shaping words I couldn't hear. The girl yanked me away, and the spell broke. But I couldn't shake the thought. Was the reflection waiting for me to falter? We crammed into an elevator with half a dozen others, their bodies pressed close, their perfume and sweat thick in the confined air. No one spoke. The elevator hummed upward, floor by floor, but the silence was heavier than any sound. I tried not to look, but their eyes were everywhere, too wide, too knowing. One woman clutched her purse so tightly that her knuckles cracked, yet her face wore a serene smile, as though she were already lost to something else. When the door slid open, I couldn't bear it any longer. I pushed past the crowd, stumbling out onto the carpeted hall. The girl followed, and only then did I notice she was shaking. "They're not watching us," she whispered. Her voice was barely audible over the hum of the hallway lights, but it froze me in place. "They're waiting for us." The meaning hit me like a blow. The stares weren't passive, they were anticipatory. The crowd wasn't just seeing us, it was holding space, keeping rhythm, until we joined, until we belonged to it. Down the hall, a door opened. A man stepped out, his face blank, his eyes wide. The symbols on his throat glowed faintly in the dim light. He lifted one hand, palm outward, as if in greeting or command. And in that moment, every door along the hall clicked open, one after another, perfectly in sync. Dozens of faces leaned out, eyes locked on us, smiles too slow, too wide, and I realized with horror that the city wasn't hunting us. It was welcoming us. We ran, down stairwells, through service corridors, into the belly of the hotel where no music should reach, and yet it followed. A low thrum in the walls, a pulse in the concrete. It was no longer only in our ears, it was in the bones of the building. The girl pressed her back to the wall, gasping for breath. Her eyes were wet, but not with tears, with reflection. The overhead bulbs caught something strange in them, a flicker of red and green light that did not belong. "Look," she whispered, pointing upward. Through a cracked service door, I saw the strip again. Towers of glass and neon loomed against the desert night, but the signs were wrong. Where before they had flashed advertisements, blackjack tables, half-price buffets, topless reviews, now the words were twisted. The lights shifted and bent until they formed shapes, lines, circles, symbols. At first, I thought my eyes were tired, that I was imagining patterns where none existed. But the longer I stared, the clearer it became. The entire skyline had rearranged itself into something else. The arc of the mirage, the spire of the stratosphere, the looping signs of Fremont Street, all of them connected, each pulse of light forming a fragment of a vast design, too large to comprehend from the ground. The city was a sigil, every bulb, every billboard, every blinding beam of light, part of one colossal pattern carved into the desert, a ritual written in neon. My stomach turned to stone. This was built for it, I said. My voice shook. The casinos, the streets, the strip, they're not just entertainment. They're pieces of something ancient, something waiting. The girl's face tightened. Not waiting, feeding. And as if to prove her right, the signs brightened. The cymbals pulsed. The crowd outside swayed harder, their voices rising in a chant that threaded through the air like smoke. We pushed out onto the strip. The heat of the night struck like a furnace, but it wasn't the desert heat anymore. It was generated, radiated, as though the very city exhaled upon us. Everywhere I looked, the symbols crawled. They etched themselves across walls, glowing faintly as though burned into concrete and glass. Hotel facades writhed with them, letters bending and reshaping until words became meaningless. Even the pavement glimmered with faint etchings, veins of light that pulsed beneath our feet like arteries. We stumbled past a fountain, its jets of water shooting upward in precise rhythm. In each spray, the water caught the neon glare, briefly forming circles, eyes, sigils. The tourists didn't see it. Or maybe they saw nothing else. They clapped, they cheered, they filmed the fountain show, their voices weaving seamlessly into the chant. I felt dizzy, sick. My vision swam, but I forced myself to look, to memorize, because some part of me believed this was important, that if I could just understand the pattern, I might resist it. But understanding only brought terror. The city wasn't random. It wasn't chaotic. It was perfect. Every sign, every building, every spectacle, aligned like teeth in the jaw of some vast machine. The girl gripped my hand, her nails cut into my skin. "Don't look too long," she whispered. "It wants you too." But my eyes wouldn't move. On the horizon, where the strip ended and the desert began, the symbols connected. Lines of light stretched outward into the dunes, linking hotels to highways, casinos to power lines, until the entire city was revealed as a single circuit. Las Vegas wasn't a city. It was an altar. And tonight, it was awake. The chant swelled around us, louder, clearer, until even I could make out the syllables. Not English, not human. A language scraped from the desert stone, from the bones buried beneath the sand. The crowd turned as one, their faces upturned to the glowing skyline, their lips moving in unison, their eyes wide and unblinking. The symbols pulsed brighter, feeding on them, feeding through them. The girl pulled me back, and I stumbled. My eyes darted to the pavement, and for a heartbeat, I saw something that froze my blood. My own shadow was no longer mine. It stretched too far, bent at angles impossible under the lights, and carved into it were symbols, the same glowing lines that crawled across the city. The city had already marked me. At first it was subtle. We ran through the strip again, pushing against the flow of bodies, against the waves of laughter and chants, neon burning our eyes. But the more I moved, the less sense the city made. I passed the same casino twice. I was sure of it. The same doorman, the same tourists in bright shirts, the same beggar with his cardboard sign. When I glanced back, it was still there, glowing, though we had walked several blocks. The girl muttered, "It's folding in on itself." Her words barely reached me over the hum. The air itself was heavy with sound, vibrating in my chest like a second heartbeat. I felt dizzy, as though drunk, though I hadn't touched a drop. We ducked into a side street to escape the press of the crowd, but instead of silence, the noise grew sharper. The alleys were lined with mirrors, not glass, but windows so polished they caught every flicker of neon. My reflection stared back at me 100 times, each image slightly out of step. One blinked late, another tilted its head when I didn't. A third mouthed words in that guttural language, eyes glowing faintly. The girl yanked me away, but the damage was done. The reflections lingered in my mind. For a moment, I could still feel them behind me, still see their lips moving, their mouths stretching wider and wider. Back on the main road, The city had shifted. The lights didn't advertise shows or jackpots anymore. Every billboard now carried the same design, concentric circles woven with jagged lines, like a maze that could never be solved. Tourists stood below them, heads tilted back, mouths open, murmuring the chant. They didn't move when we brushed past. Their eyes rolled white, their bodies swayed. The girl whispered, "They're gone already." But were they gone, or were they simply more in tune than us? I couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't victims, they were chosen. The mirage rose ahead, its facade burning in impossible colors. As we approached, I realized it was wrong. The windows shifted like water. The sign above the entrance flickered between English and something older, unreadable, carved in light. We stepped inside, and the world unraveled. The lobby stretched endlessly, its white marble floors repeating in loops. A fountain bubbled at the center, but when I blinked, there were 3 fountains, then one again, then none. People walked in circles, never reaching the doors they sought, and the smell, not cigarettes or perfume now, but dust and stone, the smell of caves, as if the desert itself had been dragged inside. A man at the reception desk lifted his head. His face was familiar. I'd seen him outside on Fremont, begging with a cardboard sign. Yet here he was in a suit, smiling to Wide. "Welcome back," he said. Though I had never been here before, my stomach dropped. "We need to leave." But when I turned, the doors were gone. Behind us was only another hallway, lined with slot machines that spun without stopping, reels flickering with the same symbols burned into the skyline. The girl grabbed my hand. Her skin was cold, slick with sweat. "Don't let go," she said. We moved deeper, though there was no deeper to go. Every hallway folded into the next. Faces repeated in the crowd. A woman in a red dress walked past us 3 times, each time holding a different drink. A dealer shuffled cards endlessly, the same hand over and over. The mirage wasn't a building anymore. It was a loop, a trap, a mirage indeed. And we were caught inside. Then I saw him. At the far end of a corridor, a man stood perfectly still. He wore a dark suit, his face lost in shadow. The crowd parted around him, but no one looked at him, only me. His head tilted slowly, unnaturally, as if bones resisted the motion. And though I could not see his mouth, I heard him clearly. "You were already here." The girl dragged me sideways, through a service door. We burst into another hallway, the same hallway. The suited man was gone, but his words clung to me like smoke. Already here. Had we ever arrived? Had we ever left? I felt my grip on time slip. I couldn't remember how long we'd been running. Hours, days. The neon never dimmed. The sky never shifted. There was no night or dawn here. Only the glow. Only the chant. The girl pressed her forehead to mine, whispering, "Don't listen. Don't let it in." But her voice was fading, and all around us, the mirage cracked, and behind it, something vast and hungry stirred. The air changed, not suddenly, not with a crash, but slowly, like the tide pulling back, stripping away layers until nothing remained. The neon still burned above, but it no longer blinded me. It only revealed. We stumbled out of the mirage through a door that shouldn't have been there. And the city was gone. The strip stretched around us, but it was hollow, its towers gutted shells. The neon signs flickered like dying torches, exposing walls of cracked stone beneath the plaster and glass. The streets that had once thrummed with crowds now yawned empty, though the echo of thousands of footsteps lingered in the dust. Las Vegas was only a mask, and beneath it, the desert had returned. The girl clutched her stomach, gagging on the air. It wasn't smoke or heat this time. It was dryness, the kind of air that scraped your throat raw, that hollowed your lungs as if they had been scooped out. Around us, the skeletons of casinos loomed like monuments, their facades peeled back to reveal carvings etched into the stone, the same symbols that had bled across the neon. But here, they were older, deeper, cut by hands that had never seen electricity. "This was here before the city," I whispered. My voice cracked, dry as the air. "Vegas didn't build this. Vegas uncovered it." The girl's eyes widened. Her lips moved soundlessly, but I could read the word altar. We walked through the husk of the strip. The Bellagio fountains were dry, their basins cracked, lined with dust. The Luxor pyramid was broken, its beam of light a thin, sickly glow, flickering against the stars. Yet the stars themselves looked wrong, too close, too sharp, as if the desert sky had thinned to nothing, and something beyond pressed against it. Everywhere we turned, the ground split in fissures, breathing heat and whispers. The cracks widened as we approached, revealing steps descending into blackness, not carved by man, but by something older, something that had always been here beneath the sand. And all the while, the chant followed us. But now it wasn't the crowd. It wasn't the casinos or the machines. It was the earth itself, humming low, a vibration that rattled my bones and shook my teeth. The girl knelt, pressing her palm against the cracked asphalt, her face twisted in horror. "It's alive," she whispered. And then the ground shifted. Not an earthquake. No, worse. The streets swelled, rising and falling in waves, like the city had become the surface of an ocean. Neon towers swayed, their facades groaning. From the fissures rose shapes, tall, thin to many-limbed, their forms shifting like smoke yet anchored in stone. Eyes opened in the cracks, dozens, hundreds, glowing faintly with the same pale light that had bled into the symbols. They blinked slowly, not in unison, but in sequence, like a message spelled out in silence. I fell to my knees, my vision swimming. The neon was gone now. Only the desert remained. But the desert itself was a city, a living architecture of bone and stone, pulsing as though it had veins beneath the sand. The girl grabbed me, shaking me hard. "Don't look at it," she screamed. "That's how it takes you." But I couldn't look away, because in that moment, I understood. Las Vegas was never built to entertain, or to dazzle, or to win fortunes. It was bait, a bright, shimmering lure to draw millions here, into the desert, to feed something older than time. Every hotel was a tooth, every casino was a throat, and every light was a signal pulsing into the sky, calling not just to us, but to something far beyond. The girl slapped me, and the spell broke. My vision snapped back to her, her face streaked with sweat and fear. "Run," she said, "before it swallows us." And so we ran again. But this time, there was nowhere to go. Because beneath the desert, beneath the neon, beneath even the stars, something had already opened its eyes. And it was hungry. The desert didn't stay. It pulsed once, like a living lung. And the neon came back, not layered on top of the ruins this time, but fused with them. The cracked stone of ancient walls bled neon veins. The gutted husks of towers straightened, glowing brighter than ever, though their foundations were still dust and bone. Las Vegas had become both mirage and corpse, spectacle and tomb. And it was awake. The streets filled again. The silence broke. The same tourists who had vanished now flooded back, stumbling, laughing, clapping, as though nothing had happened. But their movements were wrong, too synchronized, too rehearsed. The girl clung to my arm. "They don't know." She was right. Their faces shone with artificial joy, but their eyes betrayed them. Too wide, too glassy. Behind every smile was the chant, humming low like a machine that never stopped running. And then the lights began to feed. The strip blazed brighter than I had ever seen, a flood of color that swallowed the sky. Spotlights burst upward, not in beams, but in streams of liquid fire, ribbons of red and green that twisted in patterns across the heavens. The casinos throbbed like hearts, their facades pulsing with light that seemed to drink from the crowd. Every cheer, every laugh, every gasp of wonder poured into the neon, and the neon grew fat on it. We watched a man win at the slots. The machine screamed with sound, coins spilling in an endless cascade. But when I looked closer, they weren't coins at all. They were teeth, slick and yellow, bouncing across the floor. The man scooped them up, smiling, blood seeping from the corners of his grin. Around him, others clapped, swaying to the rhythm, none of them noticing the horror. At the Bellagio, the fountains erupted again, not with water, but with light. Pillars of fire shot upward, bending into the same concentric circles that had haunted us since the beginning. Tourists cheered and raised their phones, filming symbols older than language itself. The girl's nails dug into my arm. "This is it," she whispered. "The feast." She was right again. The entire city vibrated now, the chant bleeding from every wall, every screen, every throat. The symbols glowed brighter, etched across buildings, across faces, across skin, and above us, the sky itself seemed to bend, thinning, cracking. Through the fissures, something looked back, not eyes this time, but shapes vast, shifting geometries that twisted the stars around them. They moved in silence, but their presence was deafening, a pressure that filled my skull until I thought it would burst. The crowd dropped to their knees as one. Their voices rose higher, sharper, until the chant became a scream, and then the light struck them. Beams of neon shot downward, spearing the worshippers, their bodies convulsed, not in pain, but in ecstasy. Their mouths stretched wide in laughter that was not laughter. Their skin glowed from within, symbols burning beneath their flesh until they burst outward, searing the air in dazzling patterns. They weren't people anymore. They were lanterns. The strip blazed with their bodies. Each human soul melted into the feast, each scream woven into the song. I staggered back, choking on bile. My shadow pulsed with the same symbols, crawling along the pavement, reaching for the others like tendrils. I stamped on it, clawed at it, but it only grew. The girl seized my face, forcing me to look at her. Her eyes were wet, frantic. "Don't let it take you. Fight it." But her shadow was gone. There was nothing beneath her. And for the first time, I realized she didn't belong here. She wasn't part of this city. She wasn't part of the offering. That was why she could still fight. The neon swelled higher, the feast reaching its crescendo. The city was no longer a city. The desert no longer a desert. They had become one, a single living altar devouring itself and everything around it. The chant reached its peak, thousands of voices screaming one name, though I could not hear it fully. A name that scraped my bones raw, a name that cracked the sky. And as the last syllable rang out, the heavens opened, not light, not fire, something else, something vast, and the city bowed. The sky was no longer sky. The cracks had widened, tearing apart the veil of night, and through them something writhed, not flesh, not stone, geometry itself, alive and impossible, angles that bent the wrong way, spirals that didn't end, colors that had no names, but still bled into my vision, searing after images into my mind. And woven between those shapes was a sound. The chant had grown thin, almost inaudible now, but the silence that replaced it was worse. The crowd knelt, their mouths open, their throats raw, yet no voices emerged. It was as though the city itself had stolen their breath, keeping it suspended in the air above, waiting for the final note. The girl pressed her face into my shoulder, refusing to look up. Her body trembled like a child's. "Don't speak it," she whispered. "Don't hear it." But I had already heard it. Not a word in any language, not even a word at all, but a structure, a pattern, a name older than sound. My bones recognized it. My shadow bent toward it, and when I whispered it under my breath, though I hadn't meant to, the city answered. The neon flared, every bulb exploding into brilliance. Towers shook, their facades peeling back, revealing stone and symbols beneath. The streets split wider, breathing dust and smoke. And the people, oh, the people, they lifted into the air, not by wires, not by force, but by surrender. Their bodies rose weightless, swaying, as though strings of light had hooked them through their chests. Their eyes rolled back, the shadows dissolving, leaving only pale vessels pulsing in the glow. One by one, they vanished into the cracks above, devoured by the geometry. The girl screamed. She clawed at me, trying to hold me down, but my chest lifted too. My feet dragged against the pavement as something pulled at my ribs. My veins burned with light. I fought. God, I fought, clawing at my own skin, biting my tongue to stay anchored. The taste of blood grounded me for a moment, just enough to resist the pull. The girl pressed her forehead against mine. Her voice was hoarse, frantic. You don't have to belong to it. You can resist. Remember the desert. Remember silence. Her words cracked through the noise, and for a heartbeat, I felt the desert again, the dry heat, the stillness, the emptiness that had always been stronger than the lights. I slammed back down to the pavement, gasping, my lungs raw. But the city didn't relent. The name roared through me, filling every nerve. It wasn't coming from the sky anymore. It was inside me, inside every building, inside every shadow. It wasn't arriving. It was remembering. Las Vegas hadn't summoned it. Las Vegas was it. The neon, the casinos, the streets, the endless thrum of spectacle. All of it was the creature, wearing a city as its mask, and now it remembered its own name. The ground trembled as the last of the crowd dissolved upward, their bodies torn into streams of light. The casinos bowed inward, towers bending, signs collapsing into symbols. Every surface in the city pulsed with the name, alive, awake, aware. The girl dragged me into an alley. Though there was no safety there, the walls themselves breathed, symbols crawling across the bricks like veins. She gripped my face, forcing me to focus on her eyes. "Don't let it inside," she said. "If you keep its name in your head, you're already gone." But I couldn't forget it. It repeated in me, over and over, as if my skull were nothing but an echo chamber. The syllables rattled against my teeth. My shadow pulsed, stretching, forming shapes I didn't recognize, but knew were part of it. And when I opened my mouth to scream, the chant came out instead, not in my voice, in thousands. The girl staggered back. Her face broke with horror, not because I had betrayed her, but because she knew I had been chosen too. The strip is silent again, not empty, no, never empty. The crowds are back, their laughter filling the air, their footsteps echoing across polished floors. Casinos hum with the music of machines, fountains leap with choreographed beauty. Neon paints the night sky in dazzling ribbons. But it's not real. Or maybe it's more real than it ever was. I stand among them, breathing the same recycled air, hearing the same rehearsed joy. The girl is gone. I don't know when she vanished, torn upward into the geometry, or swallowed by the city's alleys, or simply erased from the script. All I know is that I am still here, and I know the name. It hums beneath everything, behind every laugh, beneath every song, inside every coin that clinks across the casino floor. They can't hear it. Or maybe they refuse to. The city keeps them blind, keeps them hungry, keeps them fed just enough so they never notice they are food. I notice. I see the symbols scrawled in the neon glow, hidden in the glitter of billboards. I see them in the roulette wheel spin, in the whirling lights of the slot machines, in the dancing jets of the fountains, circles within circles, spirals within spirals, the same shapes that tore open the sky. I feel it, too. Every laugh vibrates in my chest. Every cheer tightens my skin. Every spotlight burns across my bones. The city doesn't need to drag me into the air anymore. I am already woven into its hymn. And yet, I walk. I move through the crowd like a ghost, invisible among the glittering throng. Their faces blur, their voices overlap, but their shadows are. Their shadows betray them. I see the symbols moving beneath their feet, stretching long, whispering of hunger. A child passes me, holding her mother's hand. She giggles as the lights play across her face. But when she looks at me, her smile falters. Her eyes widen. She sees it too. She sees the thing moving inside me. Before I can reach for her, she's gone, pulled into the crowd. Her laughter returns, folded neatly into the city's chorus. The cycle is perfect. The feast has ended, the offering consumed, and yet nothing has changed. The casinos still glitter, the fountains still dance, the crowds still feed the neon. And someday, soon, the cracks will open again. The geometry will return. The name will be spoken. The sky will split. And Las Vegas will devour itself once more. And me. I don't know if I'm survivor or servant, witness or vessel. My chest still burns with the syllables. My shadow still rides with the symbols. Some nights, when the city is quietest, I hear the girl's voice whispering, telling me to resist, to remember the desert. But the desert is gone. Las Vegas is all that remains, a mirage with no end, a hunger with no bottom, a song with no silence. The people around me cheer as fireworks burst above the strip. They see colors. I see cracks. The geometry is already stirring again, just beneath the veil. And I know, with the certainty of a prayer, that it will never stop. Because Las Vegas is not a city, it is a hunger, and the hunger remembers its name. Even now, as I write these words, I hear it, soft, patient, eternal, and in the distance, beneath the fireworks and the cheers, a single scream cuts through the night, sharp, shrill, and endless. It doesn't fade. It never fades.